Is a homosexual born or made? The whole truth. I was born this way. A short phrase, but one that has become a banner raised by many homosexual individuals when faced with questions or attempts at understanding, as if it were a certificate of innocence or a protective shield against any critique or challenge. But the real question hidden behind this phrase is a person truly born homosexual? Is there something in their genes, brain, or hormones that causes them to deviate from their natural instinct from the moment of birth? Or is homosexuality something that is shaped, molded, a result of circumstances, experiences, upbringing, and social influences? This is not just a philosophical question, it's a defining one. Because the answer determines how we approach the phenomenon. Should we treat it as a human condition that deserves understanding and healing, or as an inevitable fate that cannot be changed? The difference between these two views is like the difference between someone saying, "I'm sick and I need help," and another saying, "This is who I am. Accept me no matter what my behaviors or desires are." Let us set emotions aside for a moment and look at the matter with the eyes of a seeker, not through sympathy or anger. When a human being is born, they are born with a specific sexual anatomy, with genes that determine their biological identity, and with hormones that follow that design. The natural instinctive tendency, seen in virtually all healthy individuals, is directed toward the opposite sex. It's part of the instinct for complementarity, a psychological and physical drive toward what completes, not what resembles. But what causes this natural orientation to deviate? What makes someone seek a mirror image rather than the natural counterpart? Here is where the real story begins. Some claim that homosexuals are born this way, often citing studies about differences in brain structure or genetic influence. But the issue with these studies is that even today, they have produced no definitive conclusion. Many are contradictory, and some were conducted under political pressure or funded by groups with predetermined agendas. To put it plainly, science has not discovered any specific gene responsible for homosexuality. No conclusive evidence exists stating, "This person was born gay and cannot be otherwise." What some studies have shown are minor correlations or tendencies, but they are not root causes. And in psychology, such correlations are common. They may be associated with behavior, but they do not explain it. Sexual orientation, like other psychological traits, develops and takes shape through a complex interaction between biology and environment. One cannot isolate nature from nurture, nor separate the body from the psyche or personal experience. Even a very young child's personality is shaped by affection or neglect, security or fear, closeness or abandonment. Many individuals who identify as homosexuals, if they trace their memories back to childhood, will find deep imprints that influence their orientation. Some were sexually abused at a young age. Others grew up in households lacking a mother or a father, or were exposed to broken family models, or endured bullying, isolation, or confusion about gender identity. In fact, some openly admit that they were not born that way. But it all began with curiosity, a joke, an image, a moment of experimentation that evolved over time into addiction and then into an artificial identity they clung to for protection. It's important to understand that sexual identity is not something hardwired into our DNA. It is a long psychological construction shaped by many factors, such as absent role models, disrupted relationships with parents, encouragement of cross-gender behavior, peer influence, and exposure to certain content at early stages of life. We must also recognize the massive influence of modern media and social platforms. Homosexuality is no longer portrayed as a condition, but as a fashion, a right, a symbol of freedom. Films and TV shows flood the screen with gay characters who are funny, charming, and victimized, while opponents are depicted as ignorant or cruel. This kind of representation leaves a deep mark on the subconscious, especially for teenagers whose identities are still being formed. Over time, the idea becomes acceptable, then familiar, then even appealing, particularly to those who feel rejected by the opposite sex, or lack affection, or are going through emotional distress. So can we still say that people are born gay? Honest scientific and psychological inquiry tells us no, not necessarily. In fact, in most cases, homosexuality is constructed, and often in silence, without the person even realizing it. That's why claiming that homosexuality is a permanent identity is a denial of the many real-life stories of people who have left it behind, healed, and returned to their natural state after a long journey of pain, reflection, and recovery. Moreover, a large number of homosexual individuals suffer from relentless internal conflict. They feel guilt, emptiness, dissatisfaction, even after the sexual experience they believe will fulfill them. Why? Because the human soul cannot be deceived. It may adapt, it may rationalize, but deep down, it always knows when it is on the right path and when it is lost. A homosexual person is not evil and not a criminal, but also not beyond critique or understanding. He or she is a human being, lost in a corner of their soul, searching for warmth they never found, for acceptance they never felt, for love they were never given. And so they turn to the mirror instead of seeking completion in the other. But what if we told them, you are not bound by fate. You are capable of change. You can return to your natural self. What if we gave them back their confidence, showed them healthier alternatives, surrounded them not with judgment, but with mercy and patience? The real problem is not just the orientation, but those who convince them that it is permanent. That's the real harm, when a person's will is erased under the name of identity. Religion also steps in to settle the matter. Islam does not punish people for what they feel, but for what they choose to act upon. Desire alone is not a sin, but surrendering to it is. Islam doesn't expect people to be angels, but it invites them to strive, to repent, to seek healing, and to ask God and the righteous for help. When Islam discusses homosexuality, it does not define it as a biological condition, but as a spiritual and moral struggle. This is a deep perspective. It shifts the issue from the level of genes to the level of consciousness, to a personal choice despite the obstacles. So no, homosexuality is not something you're born with. It is shaped over time, and a person can reshape themselves anew. Desire is not destiny. Experience is not identity. Attraction does not define truth. The greatest danger we face today is justifying deviation under the banner of freedom. Because true freedom is choosing what heals you, not what pleases you momentarily. Anyone who feels different, lost, or confused should not feel ashamed. They should ask questions, seek understanding, pursue healing. The problem is not that you felt something, but that you gave up without trying, without searching, without hope. And so, the whole truth is this: a homosexual is not born, but made. And once they know that, they can begin to remake themselves, back toward their fitra, toward their soul, toward the light. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share it with your friends, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel to get our latest videos.